Welcome to another episode of Hidden Heritage, where we follow the breadcrumbs to discover more evidence of who were the only American Indians that inhabited the Americas, and that are still here till this day. Now, before we dive into the rabbit hole of truth, if you are new to the channel, please like, share, subscribe, comment your thoughts down below. And don't forget to turn on post notifications so you'll be informed about our next upcoming episode. If you are already subscribed, welcome back to the channel, and thank you once again for your unwavering support. Please continue to like, comment, and share so more people can witness the truth. Let's dive in. And just a quick welcome to our new members: Turk M. Salih, Laquincy Fletcher, Red Sun, Amen TV, PRC, Wright, Billy Wright, Tabia Ani, and Woodlake Carroll. Thank you so much for your support. All right. This video is requested by Uranian Coolery 927. Can you do Colombia and Cuba, please? Let's see what we found. We are going to start off by reading from this book, The American Indian in the New World. We're going to dodge the hijack. All right, let's see what he looks like. And he is dressed in American Indian attire with the, let's get the pointer out, with the feather headdress, the feathers in the hair, the American Indian attire, right? From head to toe. So we make our way here, and we're going to read an Ararak Amerindian British Guyana. The Araraks and the Caribs, as far as we know, were the only types of Amerindian inhabiting the West India Islands from Cuba and the Bahamas to Grenada and Tobago at the time of Columbus's discovery. Both peoples came from the Guyanas, right? That is in America. All of this in the Americas, right? All right. So here are the places mentioned. But Cuba, Bahamas, Grenada, Tobago, Guyana, Suriname. So that's what the Guyanas mean. Guyana, Suriname, and the French Guiana. So let's go to a map for extra clarity. All right, so we had a map of the Americas. And we will. Cuba will be here. Bahamas over here. Then we move down, all right? We move down to Grenada and Tobago down here. And then we're going to get to Suriname down here. French Guiana down here, all right? And Guyana all around here. Again, this has in one place, one continent. And you notice which continent was not mentioned. This continent right over here. Africa was not mentioned when it talked about the Amerindians, the Araraks, the Caribs, the Indians. All came from here. Okay, right here in the Americas. So let's keep moving. All right, so we're making our way. And watch how we pick this one apart, right? So it says, in blood with the Amerindian, and that the Indian Aborigines of Cuba, instead of becoming extinct in the middle of the 16th century, have as half-breeds lingered in central and eastern Cuba to the present day. Poor blood Indians are said to have existed in the East Cuban mountains down to the early part of the 19th century, and I have seen Indian reservations of land, which were only finally broken up and thrown open to general settlement, mainly by Amerindian half-breeds, by the Spanish government 40 years ago. It is evident to me that a large proportion of the Cuban Aborigines were not exterminated, but became absorbed, right? Absorbed into the Spanish-speaking community. So a lot was said. So now we have to track down what do they mean by the Cuban Aborigines. The Indians, right? What do they mean by? Since they were not exterminated, what do they mean by absorbed, all right? So let's see. Let's ask official intelligence to break it down. What they mean by absorbed into the Spanish-speaking community. So this normally happens everywhere in the Americas. This is just not exclusive to Cuba, for example, okay? It happened in Canada, in North America, in the West India Islands, right? In South America, all throughout the Americas, especially once you start doing genealogy, right? The folks that they try to lie and say that, say they are Afro-Cuban, or Afro-Latino, or Afro-Latina, or Afro-Indigenous, just like they say about African-American, right? And when you're referring to yourself as a Black American, Black means nothing, right? And the landmass is actually called India. Hence, why they're Indians, or Amerindians, or Amerind. But let's ask artificial intelligence what they mean when they say absorbed into the Spanish-speaking community, all right? So in the provided context, observed refers to the process by which the Cuban Aborigines were incorporated into the Spanish-speaking community. This assimilation, okay? So they didn't mix with anyone, especially when we show you the pictures. And there are people that look like that in the Americas, for instance, in Cuba today. And they are erroneously called or brainwashed as, I'm Afro-Latina, excuse me, or Afro-Caribbean, or some weird stuff like that, right? So this assimilation involved the adoption of Spanish customs, language, and societal norms, leading to the integration of the Aboriginal population into the larger colonial society, Spanish. Over time, this process contributed to a blending of cultural influences, even as the distinct identity, the Indian, right? The American Indian or the Amerindian identity of the Aborigines diminished. So instead of them referring to themselves or the Spanish folks there that don't look like them, refer to them as the correct identity as American Indian, Amerindian, or Indian. They are calling themselves, or other people, are calling them Afro or African or Black or Negro or colored, okay? They are still there because we're going to show you the pictures and they're still there. And we haven't even gotten to Colombia yet. For example, there are people in Cuba right now that look like this, okay? And you notice that these two individuals on the outside, this is from Cuba, around the 1860s, all right? They are the American Indians, the Amerindians, or the Indians of Cuba, right? Anyone can reverse search this photo right here, screenshot it, print screen, whatever it's called. Look it up. They are the original people in Cuba, all right? From the 1860s. Let's examine what they are wearing, especially these two individuals right here. As you can see, he has a bracelet on his arm, his wrists, the jewelry around his neck, the earrings, all right? The feather headdress, all right? On the other side, jewelry around his neck, feather headdress. That is synonymous with being an American Indian, all right? And we're not going to skip over or ignore the matriarch in the middle, all right? She has a crown on her head, earrings. Her facial features, phenotype of them all. But being that they are actually dressed in their American Indian regalia, we have to focus on that and not ignore that, all right? Again, this is not people from Africa. Reverse search this photo. They are in the Americas specifically, all right? All right. All right. So we also will not ignore or gloss over this. The Mayan servants, if you looked at our last video, we know what they mean when they say servants. Please follow along. The Mayan servants left in Cuba, 1847 to 1848. And we see the people. We're going to get a closer look because we're going to highlight them because it's just a black and white photo. So we're going to highlight them, but we're going to read first. Sugar cane plantation. If you saw our last video, you will see there's only one group of people throughout time that were located on plantations, and they look like this, all right? So this is from Cuba, okay? We read Jorge Victoria's Brushstrokes of History, a column for the Yucatan Times, of the relations that the Yucatan Peninsula has had with other regions of the Caribbean. Perhaps none has caused as much controversy as the so-called sale of the Mayan Indians. Not Mayan servants, Mayan Indians from Yucatan, taken to work in the Cuban sugar mills in the period 1848 to 1861. So we're going to highlight them so we can get a closer look. For extra clarification, The Yucatan is in Mexico, also in the Americas. The Mexican name for the Atlantic coastal region of the Yucatan Peninsula is Riviera Maya. The English use is either Mayan Riviera or Maya Riviera. So again, there's that word again, Maya or Mayan, still in the Americas, nowhere else. All right, so we highlighted them so we can get a closer look. We even have one all the way to the left, but we can't really see the face. So we're going to try to zoom in as best we can, all right? And you see the people, you see their faces, you see what they look like, and you see what they were called, Mayan Indians. On sugar plantations, there are only one group in the world that we can find that were in on plantations, all right? And this is what they look like. All of them. Every last one of them. The Indians. So even if she has a hand in her mouth, she's like biting, chewing her nails or something like that. But this is what they look like, all of them. So we're not going to ignore that. Anyone can look this up and see that is legit, all right? This is what the Indians look like. The Mayans, the Olmecs, the Aztecs, the Incas. This is what they look like. We have the receipts. As we can see, the depiction on the left, right, matches the depiction on the right. They did not have cameras back then, so they drew what they saw. And these are the people right here on the right, the correct people of the land, right here. Also right here. The Mayan drawings on the wall do not lie. As you can see, the same resemblance. Also here, the same resemblance from head to toe. For example, this article, From Indians to Colored, The Problem of Racial Categories and the Persistence of the Chowans in North Carolina. All right? It was happening all throughout the Americas. The absorption of the actual Indians into the colonial society, erasing their correct identity. And there's only one group of people in the Americas that were called colored, that were called Negro, that were called black, that were called African-American or Afro-American or Afro-Caribbean or Afro-Latina, all right? Or Black American. There's only one group in the Americas called those erroneous identities. Their correct identity, our correct identity, is American Indian, Amerindian, Amerindian. That's it, because it's tied to a land. We are land-based people, and it is written today, the land is Indian country. That's why we have the American Indians. We have the receipts. Also, we are not going to ignore this. We can find these in antique stores, right? And it says at the bottom, Antique Indian, all right? So then we have Cuba, Havana, right? And then you scroll up, and you see the pendant of a pyramid, the Cuban link around his neck, the gold around his arm. Okay? Gold bracelet. And then we scroll to see what he looks like, all right? Even has an earring on this ear, all right? His phenotype, his hair, skin complexion, all right? So we're not going to ignore that he is actually an Indian in an antique store. And we see what he looks like. This is also what we're talking about when it comes to reclassification. In the Smithsonian Institution, scientists have discovered that 4 skeletons dug up decades ago at colonial Jamestown are among the oldest known remains of misnomer African American. The bones thought to date between 1650 and 1700 were originally classified as American Indian, all right? So that's another meaning for what it means when they say the local, the indigenous, the aborigines, the American Indians were quote-unquote absorbed into the colonial society. They were reclassified to take away their land rights, all right? Their titles again, they were reclassified, originally classified as American Indian. Let's take a quick walk over to 1939, where it says, we highlighted, Negro skeleton remains from Indian. They should have said, Indian skeletal remains from Indian sites in the West Indies. But we're going to go with it. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so Negro skeletal remains from Indian sites in the West Indies, okay? Then it says, highlighted Negro physical type inhabited the Virgin Islands in pre-Columbian times. So Indian physical type inhabited the Virgin Islands in pre-Columbian times. So we're going to keep going where they are basically forced to admit that they are Indian, okay? So the mere presence of skeletons in the sand or shell mound of Indian origin, okay? Lacking careful stratigraphic reference is not certain evidence of primary association with the accompanying artifacts. Moreover, I venture to say that few physical anthropologists familiar with American Indian skulls would mistake Indians, those illustrated by Buxton, Trevor, and Julia. Indeed, most physical anthropologists would probably be less conservative and say Negro instead of Negroid. Let's keep reading, though. Right here, in support of the opinion that these authors are describing Negroes, one wished to present a similar case from Barbados, British West Indies, from correspondent with Mr. E. Shilston of Bridgetown, Barbados. It appears that in August 1933, he commenced to excavate a sandy ridge about 50 yards from high water mark on the shore of Chancery Lane, on the southern coast of the island. This ridge proved to be a kitchen midden containing many objects of Arawak workmanship. Among other things encountered in this site was a skeleton lying on the left side, about 20 inches under the surface. Mr. Shilston believed the skeleton to be that of an Arawak Indian. All right, so they are fighting in this article between trying to call us out of our name, out of our correct identity, because it ties us to the land. All right, so an Arawak Indian in 1937 presented it as such. Okay, in 1937, he presented it as an Arawak Indian with Negroid features. Right, where was I? Excuse me. All right. So, upon reconstructing the skull from the many fragments in which it was received in Washington, I felt justified calling it a Negro, for reasons that will appear from the following description. Right again, they were originally called Indian, because that's our correct identity. Nothing about us is black or Negro. Nothing. We are Indian, because we are tied to the landmass. A Russian is from Russia. An Indian is from India. We are an Indian country. We have the receipts. All right, so we asked artificial intelligence about the American Indians of Colombia. Oh, if we made it this far into the video, please give the video a like. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so to help the video go to people who are interested in seeing the truth. All right, so we asked artificial intelligence to do what we just said. American Indians of Colombia. And then they went on to say the indigenous people of Colombia, also known as native Colombians, have a rich and diverse history. They have inhabited the region long before Spanish colonization in the early 16th century. Today, they make up about 4.4% of the Colombian population, belonging to 115 different tribes. Some notable indigenous groups in Colombia include the Kogi people who reside in Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta Mountains. The Kogi are descendants of the Tairona culture and have maintained their traditional way of life since the pre-Columbian era. So, when we clicked on there, if you have any specific details about the particular tribe or aspect of that culture, feel free to ask. So he said, show me the real link to American Indian of Colombia, not the whitewashed or imported version. Let's see what they said. All right, so sometime when you look for the truth, you're going to find it. So again, to recap, we said, show me the real link to American Indian of Colombia, not the whitewashed or imported version. It says, for a more authentic perspective on the indigenous peoples of Colombia, you might find the following sources helpful. All right? So he gave us this, he gave us this, and he gave us this. All right. Scroll all the way down, and it says, these sources should give you a more nuanced or refined understanding of the indigenous peoples of Colombia. If you need more specific information, feel free to ask. Okay, so we went through and we looked at this, and this is what we found. Jumping right into it, Colombian history as told by indigenous peoples. So, again, when we take the human element out of artificial intelligence, and we asked, hey, show us the real American Indians, not the whitewashed version, or imported version, right? And they gave us Colombian history as told by indigenous peoples. And these are the people, all right? So once we remove the human element and any kind of biased opinions, right? And we just asked for nothing but the truth, right? The whole truth. We have what we are looking at right now, the real American Indian. And again, this can be proven or disproven. We cannot stress that enough by doing genealogy, not the DNA tests. Genealogy. Our genealogy. Our ancestors were around longer than any DNA company, all right? Any longer than any DNA testing company, to be very specific, all right? So we do our genealogy, and we find the truth. You figure out the truth. We find the truth. So what basically happened is artificial intelligence basically made a compilation of the American Indians of Colombia, right? So it says, Cartagena de Indias, Colombia. And again, this is what the people look like, right? No more hiding, no more lying. Again, this can also be proven or disproved by genealogy. So when you do the genealogy of the people here, for example, you will not trace any of their lineage on either side of their family tree to Africa. Guarantee it. Cartagena, true Colombia, all right? So again, when we ask artificial intelligence to don't find facts, find the truth, it gave us a compilation of different places, different sites, different websites of the indigenous people of Colombia. And this is what they came up with. Cultural identity, climate change, the people. We even have a representative in Cuba as well. And you see, they even have the hoop earrings, okay? The truth cannot be unseen, and the truth cannot be unknown, not anymore. The history of Colombia includes a settlement by indigenous peoples. As you can see, the phenotype Cartagena again, and seeing she has her hoop earrings and her phenotype. Again, when we asked, it gave us a compilation of the indigenous peoples of Colombia. Again, this can be proven or disproven with genealogy. Just do the genealogy, and you'll see where their ancestors came from. Start with them first, and branch out from there. That's why they was making it so hard to reclassify the indigenous people, specifically to either Afro or African, Negro, black, colored, mulatto, things like that. And you can prove this fact that it only happened to those people in the Americas because you can go to any other continent, okay? And you can talk or look in the history books or the heritage of the indigenous peoples of every other continent besides Americas. Go to Africa. Go to the Middle East, go to Australia, go to Europe, go to Asia, and you will not find anyone there with a black on their birth certificate, right? You won't find Negro on their certificate. You won't find colored or mulatto on anyone's birth certificate other than the people in the Americas. And that is by design. That was not an accident. Again, you can go to any other continent besides the Americas, right? And you will not find anyone that has on their birth certificate Negro or black or colored. You only find that nonsense, that disrespect in the Americas. Our correct identity is American Indian, Amerindian, or Indian. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, please like, share, subscribe, comment your thoughts down below, and don't forget to turn on post notifications so you'll be informed about our next upcoming episode. Please take care of yourself. Please take care of each other. We'll see you guys on the next one. Much love and adoration, American Indians. Peace.